I mean, it's always great being back in Sydney. I mean, obviously I've got a lot of affection for the venue here, and you know, it's always a great privilege to go and design courses anywhere. But you know, Sydney has a special place in my heart, and it's fun. It is challenging. You know, again, I'm following up on last year. I want to keep everything this side of the cutting so it's more user friendly, more spectator friendly, and to get the required distance in on this side is a challenge. But that's my job. I'm taking the course a little bit forward from last year. Last year, you know, was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Okay, and there were a lot of very good horses here, or a number of very good horses here last year that ate it. The plan is to ratchet it up a little bit this time. The course will definitely be more difficult. A few more questions, a few more rider questions, a few more horse questions. It'll be bigger. And the weather this year, obviously in 2012, didn't help because it was so foul leading up to it. We ended up on Plan D just about. You know, with a number of the fences that we couldn't use, including new water, which wasn't ready in time. Some of the footing we had to avoid, had to build a couple of last-minute fences to replace some that we had to take out. So 2012 was a bit of a mishmash of all sorts of things, and not really what I wanted it to be. But nevertheless, you know, competition, everybody did really well under the circumstances to actually get the show on the road. So that was good. So moving forward into 2013, you know, I've been here for 4 days this week, making the plans, developing the plans. It's definitely going to be more difficult. The route will be largely the same, a few slight changes in terms of direction, and without giving too much away, I mean, there's certainly going to be a few more questions out there, and it will take a little bit more riding, a little bit more jumping, no question. Designing water fences is always fun. Obviously, you've got to first off, you've got to put it where there's going to be water. Stating the obvious, and you know, the water fence here wasn't ready for use in 2012. I think the weather was against the guys who were building it, and it needed a lot more work to be done. So we're on for 2013. Clearly, it has to be used by a lot of classes throughout the year. It's also used for schooling, and so there are a variety of issues that impact on it. If it was just designing it for the 3-star, I could be not necessarily having to be as considerate to everybody else who's going to be using the fence. However, you know, again, when you're designing a water fence, you want to have in mind that if there are going to be a lot of classes using it, it's got to be big enough in the first place. And it's quite nice to come up with a shape and some contours around the fence that allow for various options and changes over a period of time. And this is pretty much what's happened here. You know, if you look at the banks around the sides, there's various levels, there's various degrees of slope on the thing, and that allows for different levels to use it quite comfortably and provide variety. It's also big enough you can jump a fence, and there's room to then turn in the water, there's room to have fence in the water, which is always a plus. And to be honest, it doesn't cost that much more to have, you know, an extra 10 meters of water you know at the outset, and therefore you're better to make that particular investment right up front. Otherwise you think, damn, why didn't I do it in the first place? I should have spent those extra dollars right at the beginning. So it's a handy place to have it. Quite often the shape of, one of the most useful shapes of a water fence is actually a very simple pond, which is what this is. You know, you don't need to do fancy revetting around and about. And given that we've got 2 water fences on the course here, they both got different styles, and we can do different things at the two different water fences. You know, one is much bigger than the other. The smaller water fence, the new one, it's more compact, and therefore riders have to react more quickly. So almost in a funny sort of way, you're actually, as a designer, you've got the opportunity to examine different riding skills, let's say, without being overly demanding on the horses. So you find out the riders who can actually ride a little bit better or a bit more experienced, and the horses that are better trained in a smaller water fence than when you've got to give them an awful long period of time in the water and they've got plenty of time to make adjustments. So it'll be interesting to see. This is going to come up fairly quick. It's fairly early in the course, and they'll need to be on their game. It's going to be a fairly decent fence in with an alternative, and then they'll have to ride to get out. So it should be fun. There'll be a lot of communication between myself and Brett. There is a possibility, I mean, when the 2-star tracks and the 1-star track have been designed, there's an outside chance I might need to come back in February just to check on progress, see how they're all working together, how they're all blending together. But in reality, I'll to save expense as much as anything else. I can do a lot. I left Brett with a lot of information, the organisation with a lot of information about how the fences want to look, the dressing of the fences. Brett's got all the information he needs for the design and the build. So we'll get on with that, and then we'll just talk. We'll email each other. We'll talk on the phone if we need to, and I'll come in, a little bit earlier than I would do, given that there's not an intermediary trip. But in reality, there's not a whole lot more that's needed to be done. Last year was a big change and a lot of work, so there was more communication last year. And also Brett as the builder, the relationship between the builder and the designer is very key. Brett's got used to my style and expectations now really as well. So, we were both learning about each other last year, whereas now we're sort of in each other's comfort zone. So hopefully it's going to be pretty straightforward from here on in.